to this computer. Well, good afternoon. And you know, someone, I don't know who that would have been, said that, gosh, reading instructions become boring as hell. Uh, I don't know. Do you know who was guilty of? I don't know if anybody said that, but you know what? When you start working with these three people, it just isn't. And they have a new book out called Artfully Teaching Reading with Project-Based Learning, and we're going to be the main part of this will be of this interview is going to be around this and how to make, you know, here's a thought. Uh, Teaching reading could be fun. Reading could be engaging, instead of boring. I don't know. Call me crazy. Well, some people have. Okay, so here we go. So I want to get a start here with that thought. What we're going to do first is I'm going to turn it over to Chase, and he's going to elevator statement, and then we're going to get into the book. Chase, there's one other thing. Is anything new with you?
Lots of things.
Okay, but I'm
Everything's
thinking of
new.
one thing that might start with RRQ. I don't know
Ah, yes. Yes.
that.
My name is Chase, and I am crazy enough to be the newest editor of Reading Research Quarterly.
Wow.
Yes.
All right. Applause, applause. Sorry, Bob.
So far, it's an amazing
I'm sorry, pal,
experience.
but we're not going to. That's the last we're going to talk about that at this interview. But I got to set up another one about that and you at some other point. So, congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
that said, and getting that elephant out of the room, we're going to now move on to actually turning things over to Chase, and he's going to introduce his two colleagues, his two co-authors, and Artfully Teaching Reading with Project-Based Learning. So, Chase, how about an elevator statement from each of you, and then we'll get started. Chase, you started.
You got it. Thank you, Sam. Thank you for having us. Always a pleasure to talk with you. My name is Chase Young, and I am currently a professor at Sam Houston State University. I am a former elementary school teacher, and I've been in education for over 20 years, and it has been a gift and an honor. And I'm happy to be here with Seth and Allison, my co-authors from this project. I begged them. Maybe I roped them in. I don't know. I don't know. It's whatever. But happy to have them introduce themselves now too.
Okay, could it be they were voluntold? We
May have
have a
been
lot of that going on in the
something at a
ILA.
conference where I was like, come on.
Okay, okay, I've started to interrupt. You continue on.
All right. Hi, Sam. Thanks for having us on. My name's Seth Parsons. I'm a professor at George Mason University. I work in the elementary education and literacy programs. Before that, I was a classroom teacher in North Carolina. My editorial role, one of my editorial roles now, is co-editing the Journal of Literacy Research. Uh,
Mm.
and now I'll turn it over to Allison.
Hello, I am super excited to be here talking about this book. And no, we were not roped in, we were excited about it. I am
Sure.
a former kindergarten teacher, so I can tap dance and pull kids into everything and anything, and I do it with great excitement. I am currently a professor, associate professor in the School of Education at George Mason University, and I'm the director of the Sturdivant Center for Literacy.
Okay,
Right.
well,
So we're not busy at all.
Yeah,
right.
not at all.
And you have no
Take your
credentials
time,
to
Sam.
speak up. Okay. Okay. Yeah, right. Okay. Well, what a wonderful group of educators. And now let's get into this because this uh, artfully teaching reading. Okay. What a concept. And I think it's taking off. And I think there are a lot of people that are finding out, gosh, teaching reading could actually be fun and research based all at the same time. So
Mhm.
let's talk about your book. First question, and this one's up for grabs to anyone. And I'm playing with my technology here and gallery again. Okay, so People often see the science of reading and project-based learning as opposites. Why is that a false choice? Take it on, anybody.
Fantastic question, loaded question. I think the first thing we would need to say is, yeah, we take a risk here. Project-based learning right now doesn't have the greatest, I guess, reputation. And I think a lot of it comes from the fact that it's done poorly. It's unstructured. It's as if we're supposed to just like, okay, we're going to do a project. 6-year-olds, here's a bunch of glue, here's some construction paper, and I'll be back in 3.5 hours. And that's not, and of course, that's not going to work. It may be fun for them, but it's not going to really help them learn. So I think the key is that we focus a lot on the project-based learning, the L of the PBL, as well as some instructions. So I think where we get that dichotomy or that opposition of, here's our structured approach, science of reading-esque, and here's a more laissez-faire, just, hey, let's do some projects. But what we tried to do, and I think we did it pretty successfully, I'll let my co-authors talk about that, but we were able to take the evidence and pair it with actual projects that were not only going to help them practice the skills that they were learning, but apply them in authentic, creative, and innovative contexts. And that's really the whole goal, is to take what they've learned and apply it in ways to creatively demonstrate their mastery as well as their understanding of how all these skills and strategies that they're learning actually fit in the real world. So that's kind of where we went. I'll let Seth and Allison expand on that if they like to.
So it's a yes and approach. We're looking at it not as a false dichotomy, but we want the structure. We want that research-based focus, and we want kids to enjoy learning. We don't want them to go to school and cry. We want them to go to school and have fun and laugh. Because, when a kid walks into kindergarten and first grade, the first days of school, like, I'm going to learn how to read. And they're so excited about it. And if we just give them, the basics and the sounds and the letters, but we don't actually engage them in the process, that can demotivate them and disengage them faster than we really want to admit. And so our yes and approach keeps it fun while they're getting that foundation that they have to have, and it builds up that engagement and motivation to keep them wanting to learn. So yes, and.
Okay. Somehow or another, you guys sound like maybe you're going to do some direct instruction before you turn them loose, huh? Call me crazy, but that's what I'm getting out of that. What I'd like to know, though, is artfully teaching reading. What does that mean in practice?
Sure. So we previously wrote with some other colleagues of mine, Tim Rosinski and David Page, we wrote Artfully Teaching the Science of Reading. And we essentially set that up as 3 tenets, like what is artful teaching? And we like to bring in learning that is an instruction that's creative, that is authentic, and that's aesthetic. And I know that creative and authentic makes a lot of sense. You're like, yeah, that sounds great. What is this aesthetic piece? That's the piece where the instruction is pleasing, where it is something that they want to learn. So we arrange our instruction and provide our experiences in a way where kids are like, I love that. I want that. I must have it. And that is truly something we have to focus on these days. We can know the report of the National Reading Panel from front cover to back cover and listen to every single Amplify podcast and read all of the reading research handbooks. But if we don't engage them, it's not going to matter. If they don't want to learn, many of these students who don't want to won't. I can think of an example so I teach literacy methods. So I'm in an elementary school twice a week, and I was working with a small group of 2nd graders with my student teacher, and there was a student who was not going to learn. We were looking at digraphs or silent letters, the KN, the WR, and we were trying to make it fun-ish, but he was just, I mean, there was no way that if we had just followed the lesson that he was going to engage and learn. But what ended up happening is anytime we saw WR or KN, we'd do a spin. And then when he was writing it, rather than writing it regularly, I had him write it in cursive because he saw me writing because I was taking notes and he saw that it was in cursive. He was very interested. And I was like, you know what? What if I have him on the whiteboards write these words with these digraphs and or silent letters in cursive and see if he'll do it? And he did every single one. The teacher couldn't believe it. And that is what we call artful instruction. It's dynamic pivots. It's knowing our students, it's seeing that they're disengaged and figuring out how to bring them in. And that may not be written in a textbook. It may not be on a podcast. It may not be on a webinar. It's really, truly written on the kid's face.
Yeah.
And that is how we engage them.
Okay. So, gosh darn, it sounds like you guys believe in teachers being teachers. Now, what happened to the model of the teacher monitors the classroom, watching kids watch computer screens? Now, isn't that just a wonderful model? Gosh, I'm seeing some no's out there. So I'm going to throw a pair of questions at you now. Uh, and How does your approach align with the science of reading, especially explicit instruction and foundational skills? And what do critics of project-based learning get wrong about reading instruction? And Seth, I'm going to throw this one at you.
Perfect person for it, too.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, one thing that led to this book is that we're researchers, that we are passionate that the up-to-date research should be guiding policy, it should be guiding instruction. So we had this science of reading movement that really just swept the nation. We saw lots of most states adopting policies related to uh, the science of reading and explicit teaching. And, we were fine with that. We're like, yeah, research guiding instruction. But what was we found is the way it was being implemented in policy and in practice did not align with the principles of motivation. So we were thinking about not only how kids learn to read, but also motivational principles that drive instruction, and that comes from being not only researchers but also teachers. So, like Chase was just talking about, when we see a kid who is totally disengaged, we can't continue down the same path. So, throwing in motivating principles, which align with project-based instruction, allow us to uh, administer instruction that is aligned with both the science of reading and motivational principles as well. So, looking for ways to give students choice and investment in the actual activity, embedding skill instruction within larger tasks that they want to complete. So, really getting at the drive to participate instead of doing these school-based tasks, which are nothing other than a school-based activity, and embedding it within a project gives students that motive to want to engage and do it. And once they want to do it, that's when the teacher can capitalize on that motivation, pool differentiated small groups, and provide that direct instruction that's so important for giving kids the foundations for learning to read.
Okay, I'm going to throw in another thought here, and that is maybe, and well done, Seth, maybe you're teaching kids not what to think, but rather how to think. Okay, and that kind of makes, and the focus is on the kid, and the focus is on the thinking processes. And by the way, the brain is a pretty complex. That's another podcast, but it's a pretty complex thing. And if we're going to get them engaged, we have to teach them how to think. And one of the things we need to keep in mind is out there in the real world. Uh, I'm I kind of went on some of the websites looking for a job, and I could not find a single job out there that was reading word lists.
Mhm.
There just aren't many jobs like that out there. On the other hand, I see an awful lot of things where if you know how to think and you know how to teach yourself and you've got that problem solving ability, then I see a ton of things. And today's kindergartners are the jobs they're going to probably fall into haven't been invented yet. So they've got to be able to think and teach themselves to learn, and that's my 2 cents worth. Okay, um, where? So I'm going to again throw a couple of questions back at you again. What's the difference between real engagement and just fun activities? And where can this go off the tracks? How can we avoid um, going down the wrong road here? Okay. So anybody take it over.
I'll jump in with the first question, and I'll toss it to Allison or Chase for the second part. But just to speak to genuine engagement versus just having fun, when we think of engagement as a construct from research, which is where we're pulling from, we know that engagement isn't just enjoying an activity. Sure, that's part of it, and we can capitalize on students liking particular topics and ideas. So that is one strand, enjoyment. But the other strands involve um, strategic, deep thinking and having the autonomy and agency to apply and use. The skills that are being developed. So it kind of goes back to Allison's both and when we're thinking about instruction that aligns with this is yes, students absolutely need the foundational skills that make up learning to read. We're not arguing that at all. We're just saying that we're not going to get kids to do that in a vacuum. Rather, we need to give them these authentic purposes where they have the desire to do it and genuine, deep engagement. They're going to be uh, thinking deeply, strategically, and in that engagement comes motivation. So I'll stop there and let someone else chime in as well.
So we start the book in the introduction, we talk about synergistic instruction, and that captures this perfectly. Um, Seth and I shared a mentor, Jerry Duffy, absolutely brilliant comprehension reading researcher, and he always used to say, keep the main thing the main thing. And that's what we're trying to do here. The main thing is kids have to learn how to read, and teachers have to teach effectively. And there are pieces that have to be taught explicitly. So, in the introduction, with that synergistic instructional approach, we walk through step by step. Here's how you can do this. Keep it manageable. Keep the main thing, kids learning how to read, while making it engaging and interesting. Because let's face it, the teachers have to stay engaged too. And so when we give them enough of a roadmap and how that explicit instruction integrates with the projects, then it keeps it manageable, it keeps it interesting, and it makes the experience happier for everyone who's involved.
Okay. I I was just talking to a guy, some of you might know him, Tim Rosinski, talking to him last week, and boy, does he like that word synergy. Eh, uh, and he is kind of the king of that. And as I think about uh, what you're doing, what he's doing, again, there are times when you've got to do repetitive things, okay.
Mhm.
But he found, and you all are finding ways to make that interesting anyway. And it's not the same old, same old. So that's very important. Um, Now, here's a $1 million question. Okay, I know my audience out here. They are teachers, love people who give them something they can use on Monday. Okay, that's if you're going to do any professional development, you better have that in the back of your mind. If you're not giving them something they want to do on Monday, then you won't have any engaged people in your
That's
professional development. That's just life.
right.
So here's the toughie. Um, what's one thing or some things that we could do to immediately improve reading instruction in general and our own reading instruction. What's some takeaways you can give my audience out there that they'd be able to go out there and use it next Monday?
Sure. Um, that is a massive question. And if I could answer that perfectly, just show me the money, I mean, make me king of education, if that's a thing. Emperor. Um, I think the advice that I would give on Monday morning is to remember that these kids are kids. Um, a lot of times we get very serious about what we're doing, and because it is serious, and we have people talking to us as if it's really serious up here and down here and all over the place. But I want you to remember that they're kids, so we know how to develop phonemic awareness. We know how to follow a scope and sequence to help students learn to decode more effectively, so they can move into more automatic word reading, so that they can understand. But what we want to think about is, what do my students like? What do I like? Um, how can I bring that into my instruction? That's what you need to do over the weekend before Monday is, what did you do over the weekend? Because honestly, even if it's not just about them, it's about you. If you're really passionate about something and you bring it into and integrate it into instruction, kids can see it. They can see that you're enjoying yourself. They can see they can have fun. And then it kind of makes them lean in a little bit. I mean, seriously, I think the quote I've been quoted saying, like, if you are bored during instruction, think about your students. Their board time's infinity. My goodness gracious. So what I want you to do, Monday morning takeaway from Chase, and I'm sure Seth and Allison will have something else for you, is it's not that serious. And your kids are kids. And please bring in some of those things that make you happy and that make your students happy, and integrate that. A lot of the tools and strategies and approaches that we put in this book, I've done before, that we've done before, but several of them came because they were what interested me. Like, I loved making movies as a kid. Boom. That is one of the strategies. I loved making weird commercials about stupid things around the house. Boom. That is a strategy. Like, there was a lot of it came from. Now, some of the strategies like the integrate would you rather and things like that, that's absolutely for the kids because they read those things constantly. And so obviously thinking about them. So think about your students. I don't know your students, but you do. So before you go in on Monday morning, think, okay, what am I teaching and how can I bring in something that I enjoy and maybe my students enjoy?
And I'll jump in there because one thing that when I'm working with teachers is to remind them like Chase is saying, their clientele. If we really step back and think, we're dealing with 5, 6, 7-year-olds, right? Like these kindergartners are like, a couple years removed from potty training. These kids are just learning how to tie their shoes, and we're asking them to do these incredibly complex synergistic skills of looking at, letter sounds, which don't make any sense whatsoever. We have how many, 44 phonemes and 26 letters. That is really tough for a 5-year-old to wrap their head around. So we're doing all this really high level stuff. So let's keep in mind that they are kids. And one little thing that I'll add on top of that is the more you know your kids, the better you're able to apply this sort of instruction that Chase is talking about and that we really highlight in this book. If you know what gets your kids really excited and you know what their passions are, you know who their best friends are, you know what they do over the weekend, that's the sweet spot where you can pull in stuff that is relevant because that relevance is one central piece of what we know about motivating and engaging instruction. So the more we can capitalize on who kids are and what they care about, the more we're going to reap the benefits of the instruction we provide if we can tap into that.
Okay. Well, Allison, I'm going to put you on the spot. You've got that background with kindergarten
Yeah.
and the really younger kids, and I've talked to any number of people, uh, uh, and there are some people in the that world, the younger kids world, the term age appropriate instruction comes
Mhm.
in. And if you start asking kids to do things that are way outside their age appropriate instruction, then all of a sudden you get false. Well, it looks like they're LD or but they're not. They are kids.
Mhm.
So that whole concept of age appropriate instruction comes into play. Uh, Play, you know, kindergarten, didn't that, doesn't, wasn't the original thing something like Garden of Children?
Garden of Children.
So
Incredible.
uh, I'm going to put you way on the spot and say, can you really teach them through play? Is
Yes.
that a thing? Is that
Yes.
something a teacher can learn to do?
Yes, and
Mm.
frankly, it's the best way for our younger learners and honestly our older learners too. I mean, I don't want to sit at a desk all day and do worksheets. I want to get up and move. I am lucky enough to have taught kindergarten in an era where the motto was, if you want them to learn it, they need to sing it, paint it, and eat it. And that's still kind of where we are. Um, when we actively engage students in their learning and we adapt the instruction to follow their interests, they rise to whatever complexity we throw at them. And I don't mean that in a way that we're going to be teaching Shakespeare, but we could have fun with language, much like Shakespeare did, and we can create our own words to describe things like Shakespeare did. So there are so many different ways that younger children take what we give them and they push our understanding just as much because they think about things in such a creative way that an adult who's kind of put their own thinking into a little box that's tidy and holds just the right amount of information, kids don't see that. They see all the possibilities, and sometimes they see them at once. And then we have to untangle and figure out what's happening and how we want to kind of bring that back to the main focus. Like, well, yeah, that's really cool. And today we're talking about this. No, go with it when you can. Honor their, I don't want to say, random comments, but sometimes they are. And sometimes they turn the lesson into something 17 times more brilliant than what we have in the plan book.
But Allison, if it's okay, Sam, if I jump in there,
Oh,
because this
absolutely. Yes.
this is a text chain that we were on with our elementary education colleagues
Yep.
yesterday. Is one of our colleagues was observing a reading lesson that the student teacher was doing, and there was this clear moment where the kids were captivated by the big book. This is a kindergarten classroom. They're reading a big book, and they saw the cover, and there's lots of chatter. The kids are all excited. Um, and the student teacher sort of looked at the teacher and was like, can I engage, can I roll with this or do I have, ask, do I have to stick with the lesson plan? And the teacher was like, yeah, maybe we can find time to engage with that later in the day. But there is this messaging that in this, reading lesson, we have to stay the path. So this observing teacher was just texting us like, is the Virginia Literacy Act, we're in Virginia, so restrictive that we can't, as teachers, capitalize on palpable engagement by a group of 5 and 6 year olds. So there was some conversation about that, but that's the exact sort of moment that Chase and Allison have both alluded to earlier. That is exactly what we want when there's rumblings among the kids and they're talking about content, the books. Like that is what we want, and to be able to say, we're going to ignore this enthusiasm and continue down the scripted lesson just pains the teacher in me, and I think that's the concern that led to the creation of this book.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We want less womp womp teaching.
Yes, right. And really,
Okay.
the goal for the book is we present a lot of options for you, but really the whole time is we're trying to inspire you to create your own based on what you know about your students. We want you to be the developer, so that you can maximize that student learning and application. We're just kind of a springboard, and we're excited to see where you can go. Um, it's it's a good time, and we hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the conclusion, we mentioned I talked about the introductions, and now I got to
Oh,
talk about the conclusion.
absolutely.
But
Yeah, that's a great
we
idea.
really we stress the importance of adapting the instruction. So adaptive teaching, where teachers are really thinking about their kids, like we've mentioned, but also about their curriculum and about the needs of the people in front of them on that day. We don't want this to become another rigid, okay, I did step one, now I do step two. If step one
Please no.
takes you in a really cool direction, go with it. Okay. The main thing is the kids are learning how to read and they're having fun. Okay. So adapt, adapt, adapt. We are a springboard and we want you to take these ideas and make them your own.
Okay. Um, uh, Boy, that's a perfect segue into conclusions here. And it really is, you're teaching them and yourself how to become a thinker and how to think. And that's so very important. Now, as an interviewer, I always have nightmares about uh, why didn't I ask them that? Okay. So this is your chance, y'all, because this is my last question. And the last question is there anything that you just, boy, why did Bomberino not remember to ask about that? Is there anything out there or have we got it covered? So if there's something out there I left out, chime in. If there isn't, we're getting close to that point of wrapping it up. So, did I leave out anything? Is there something that you're feeling the need to say that hasn't already been said?
Right. You asked a question earlier that we actually never got to, and it was a very important one where you said, "What happens when this starts to go off the rails? How do we keep this on track?" I think that's a really important one. We have to first of all think about what we're doing. How does it align with our curriculum? If it's not necessarily aligning with learning objectives, then we probably don't need to be doing it. Also, I get this a lot, and I see it, and I understand it. But like teachers will say, "I have a particularly wild group this year." And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And when I go and I see it, I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really fun one. I would love to be there. But, not everybody is out for that kind of punishment like I am. But yeah, sometimes we got to rein it in a little bit. That's again adapting. If you have a insane class, which I am jealous of, then yeah, sometimes you have to temper it. You got to bring it down a little bit, or you got to chunk it. You can't have them all go through these steps in a day or even a week. Sometimes, you give them that opportunity to be active, but then there's reflective moments where you kind of center them again, get them grounded. It's again up to you. What we want you to do is make sure that you're following the research, you're engaging your students, and you're doing it in a way that's not disruptive, but also that it's effective. So any kind of shift you have to make, please do that. You absolutely have our blessing. So I wanted to make sure that we took care of that little issue because it's true. PBL can go off the rails, and I got to tell you, it was Routledge and I discussing even using the term project based learning because it's less projecty and more just authentic, engaging ways. It's more like project based instruction, PBI. But hopefully, with this book out and the way that we presented it, that we can start looking towards more engaging ways in projects, even where students can apply what they're learning. So,
Okay, well, speaking of looking for things, I'm going to end by inviting my listeners to be sure to look this book up. I promise you that there'll be a link to this. There'll be a link to, you might find me doing some um, uh, emails back to you saying, hey, you better give me a link. You mentioned that research. You better give me a link to him. So I'll be looking for that kind of thing. But my folks out there, artfully teaching reading with project-based learning. Uh, it- this one's going to be on my bookshelf, and it's going to join some of those other things, and it's going to help me create synergy in my projects, and I think it might do that for you as well. Now, Uh, I think I just wrapped things up. Okay. And there will be a link, links to this in the written part of the blog. There's one last tradition. Chase knows about this. Then you're all going to find out about it like right now. I need your biggest smiles. And ladies and gentlemen, I need a Zoom wave goodbye. Okay. And thank you so much. This has been
Thank you for having
enlightening.
us.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye
Sam.
bye.